The Galactic Council's emergency session had been going on for what felt like 17 standard hours, which was roughly 16 hours and 59 minutes longer than anyone with functioning brain cells wanted to be there. The massive crystalline chamber buzzed with the kind of nervous energy typically reserved for natural disasters and tax audits, as representatives from 47 different species tried very hard not to panic about what they had collectively decided to call the human problem. High Coordinator Zixthul of the Rigelian hegemony stood at the central podium, his 12 eye stalks swiveling frantically as he addressed the assembly. His species had evolved from prey animals, which explained both their excellent peripheral vision and their tendency to treat every minor inconvenience as an extinction-level event. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice carrying that particular tone of barely controlled hysteria that made entire star systems nervous. "We face an unprecedented crisis. The human delegation has submitted what they call a routine cultural exchange proposal." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The last time humans had suggested a routine anything, 3 solar systems had been accidentally reorganized, and the Galactic Stock Exchange had crashed because nobody could figure out what a potluck dinner was supposed to accomplish economically. Dr. Samantha Blake, Earth's reluctant xenocultural liaison, sat in the human delegation's corner booth and tried very hard not to roll her eyes. She had a PhD in comparative anthropology, which had seemed like a perfectly reasonable career choice, until first contact had revealed that the galaxy was full of species who took everything literally, and had no concept of metaphor, sarcasm, or the phrase, "it's not that deep." "Perhaps," she interjected with the kind of patience usually reserved for explaining to toddlers why they couldn't eat crayons, "we could discuss what specific aspects of our proposal are causing concern?" The suggestion caused another wave of agitated chittering, clicking, and harmonious humming throughout the chamber. Councillor Vexithara of the Crystalline Confederation raised a glittering appendage that might have been an arm, or possibly a very judgmental piece of geology. "Dr. Blake, your species has proposed what you term casual interaction protocols with our young. Our xenobiologists are concerned about the implications." Dr. Blake blinked. "You mean playdates?" The word playdates hit the chamber like a sonic boom. Several representatives immediately activated their emergency communication devices, presumably to warn their homeworlds that the humans had deployed some kind of linguistic weapon. "Dr. Blake," Zixthul continued, his eye stalks now rotating in what the translation software helpfully identified as maximum anxiety mode. "Our analysis of human cultural data suggests that these playdates involve complex ritualistic behaviors designed to establish dominance hierarchies among juvenile populations. They're just kids hanging out," Dr. Blake said slowly, beginning to suspect that this conversation was going to require the kind of patience that normally came with a prescription. "Hanging out?" Ambassador Korthak of the warrior clans leaned forward, his battle-scarred carapace gleaming under the chamber's lights. "Is this some form of execution ritual?" Dr. Blake closed her eyes and counted to 10 in 17 different languages, a skill she had developed during her first week on the job. "No, Ambassador. Hanging out is a colloquial expression meaning spending time together in a relaxed, informal manner." "Relaxed?" General Thrix of the military coalition's cybernetic implants whirred with what sounded suspiciously like panic. "Dr. Blake, our intelligence reports indicate that human juveniles engage in what you call games during these interactions. Our analysts have identified over 3,000 distinct variations, many involving complex strategic thinking and physical coordination." "You mean like tag and hide and seek?" The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 12 different species began talking at once, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that sounded like a malfunctioning orchestra having an argument with a construction site. Through it all, Dr. Blake sat quietly, watching the galaxy's most advanced civilizations collectively lose their minds over the concept of children playing together. She had been Earth's xenocultural liaison for exactly 6 months, and in that time she had learned that the universe was a vast, complex place filled with wonders beyond imagination, and populated by beings of incredible intelligence and sophistication who were, unfortunately, completely insane. "Perhaps," she called out over the noise, "we could start with a simple demonstration? I could show you what human children typically do when they interact." The chamber gradually quieted as the various representatives realized she was suggesting something that could either solve their crisis or trigger an interstellar incident. Given humanity's track record, the odds were roughly 50-50. Zixthal's eye stalks converged on her with the intensity of laser targeting systems. "Dr. Blake, are you suggesting that we observe human juvenile interaction protocols in a controlled environment?" "I'm suggesting we let some kids play together while you watch and realize that you're all completely overthinking this." The suggestion caused another wave of frantic consultation among the various delegations. Dr. Blake noticed that several species were already activating what appeared to be emergency protocols, as if preparing for the possibility that human children might accidentally conquer the galaxy through the strategic application of hopscotch. "Very well," Zixthal announced after what seemed like several geological ages. "We will arrange for a controlled observation of human juvenile interaction protocols. However, we must insist on certain safety measures." "Safety measures," Dr. Blake repeated flatly. "Naturally. We will need full medical teams on standby, military observers to analyze tactical implications, and xenobiologists to study the psychological warfare aspects of these games." Dr. Blake stared at him. "You want to deploy a full scientific and military response team to watch children play?" "Dr. Blake," Ambassador Korthak interjected gravely, "your species has already demonstrated an alarming tendency to revolutionize galactic society through seemingly innocent activities. We cannot afford to take any chances with the psychological development of our own young." This was, unfortunately, a fair point. In the 6 months since formal first contact, humans had accidentally solved 3 major diplomatic crises, revolutionized interstellar agriculture through the introduction of crop rotation, and caused a galaxy-wide philosophical renaissance by explaining the concept of agreeing to disagree. The Galactic Council was understandably nervous about what humanity might accomplish next. "Fine," Dr. Blake said, already regretting every life choice that had led her to this moment. "We'll arrange a demonstration. But I'm warning you now, if you're expecting some kind of elaborate military strategy, you're going to be very disappointed." "Dr. Blake," Zixthal said with the solemnity usually reserved for funeral orations, "given your species' track record, we find your warnings more concerning than reassuring." The session was adjourned with the kind of bureaucratic efficiency that suggested everyone involved was eager to get as far away from the human delegation as possible. Dr. Blake gathered her materials and headed for the exit, already mentally composing the report she would have to send back to Earth explaining why the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were treating a children's birthday party like a potential weapon of mass destruction. As she reached the chamber doors, she was intercepted by Dr. Lixian, the Galactic Council's chief xenobiologist. The Altarian's crystalline features were arranged in what might have been concern, or possibly indigestion. It was hard to tell with silicon-based life forms. "Dr. Blake," Lixian said, her voice carrying the kind of academic excitement that usually preceded very bad decisions, "I must ask, these games that human children play, do they serve any evolutionary purpose beyond entertainment?" Dr. Blake paused, considering how to explain that children's games were actually sophisticated learning tools that help develop social skills, physical coordination, problem-solving abilities, and emotional intelligence. Then she realized that explaining this to aliens who were already convinced that hopscotch was a form of psychological warfare might not be the wisest course of action. "They're just games, Dr. Lixian. Kids having fun." "Fascinating," Lixian murmured, making notes on what appeared to be a crystalline tablet. "And this fun, it serves no strategic purpose?" "The strategic purpose of fun is to have fun." Lixian's crystalline features rearranged themselves into what Dr. Blake was learning to recognize as the Altarian equivalent of a migraine. "Dr. Blake, surely you understand that such a statement is paradoxical?" "Welcome to humanity," Dr. Blake said cheerfully, and left the xenobiologist to contemplate the existential implications of recreational activity. As she walked through the station's corridors toward the human quarters, Dr. Blake reflected on the cosmic irony of her situation. She had spent years studying alien cultures, preparing for the day when humanity would take its place among the stars. She had imagined profound philosophical exchanges, the sharing of ancient wisdom, and the gradual building of understanding between species separated by vast gulfs of space and evolution. Instead, she spent most of her time explaining why humans did things like small talk and casual Fridays to aliens who analyzed every human behavior for hidden military applications and deep cultural significance. Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Dr. Blake opened it to find a video message from her sister, whose 8-year-old daughter was bouncing excitedly in the background. "Sam, Emma's been asking about the aliens again. She wants to know if they want to play with her when you get back. I told her you'd ask them." Dr. Blake stared at the message, suddenly realizing that she was about to introduce the galaxy's most paranoid civilizations to humanity's most chaotic demographic. Children who wanted to make friends with everyone they met. The implications hit her like a small asteroid to the frontal lobe. If the Galactic Council was this concerned about human children's games, what would they do when they discovered that human children actually wanted to play with alien children? And more terrifyingly, what would happen when alien children discovered that human children were actually fun to be around? She had a sudden, horrible vision of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations being gradually conquered by the strategic deployment of playground equipment and juice boxes. The communication device chimed again. This time, it was a priority message from High Coordinator Zixthul. "Dr. Blake, we have received disturbing reports that human children on Earth are already aware of our existence and are expressing desire for cultural exchange. Please advise on containment protocols immediately." Dr. Blake stared at the message, then at her sister's cheerful video, then at the message again. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the sound of galactic civilization quietly preparing to panic. "Oh," she said to the empty corridor. "This is going to be interesting." The controlled observation facility that the Galactic Council had constructed for the human juvenile interaction demonstration looked less like a playground and more like a maximum security research installation designed by beings who had never seen a child, but had heard terrifying stories about their capabilities. The main observation area was surrounded by reinforced transparent aluminum walls, equipped with enough scientific monitoring equipment to study a supernova, and staffed by what appeared to be the entire xenobiological research community of the local galactic arm. Dr. Blake stood in the center of this technological monument to alien paranoia, watching as representatives from 47 different species took their positions behind blast-resistant barriers. She was beginning to understand why Earth's first contact protocols had included a section on managing galactic anxiety disorders. "Dr. Blake," High Coordinator Zixthul announced from the primary observation deck, his 12 eye stalks focused on her with laser-like intensity. "We are prepared to begin the demonstration. However, we must remind you that any sign of aggressive behavior will result in immediate containment protocols." "Zixthul," Dr. Blake replied with the kind of patience that came from years of dealing with academic committees. "They're 6-year-olds. The most aggressive thing they're likely to do is argue about whose turn it is on the swings." "Swings?" Ambassador Korthak's battle-scarred carapace gleamed as he leaned forward. "Dr. Blake, our preliminary analysis suggests that these swings are some form of momentum-based training device. Are you teaching your young to use kinetic energy as a weapon?" Dr. Blake closed her eyes and counted to 10 in 23 languages, a skill that was becoming increasingly necessary in her current position. "Ambassador, swings are playground equipment. Children sit on them and move back and forth because it's enjoyable." "Enjoyable," General Thrix repeated, her cybernetic implants whirring with what sounded like deep concern. "Dr. Blake, are you suggesting that human juveniles derive pleasure from simulated combat maneuvers?" "I'm suggesting that children like to swing because it's fun. You know, fun? That thing we discussed yesterday?" The mention of fun caused another wave of nervous chittering throughout the observation area. Dr. Blake was beginning to suspect that the concept of recreational activity might be fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization as currently constituted. "Dr. Blake," Dr. Lixian called from her position behind what appeared to be enough scientific equipment to analyze the molecular structure of happiness itself. "We are ready to begin recording. Please summon your juvenile subjects." Dr. Blake activated her communication device and sent the signal that would bring the first group of human children to meet their galactic audience. She had specifically chosen children who were known for being well-behaved, diplomatic, and unlikely to accidentally trigger an interstellar incident through the strategic application of playground politics. The first child through the door was Emma, Dr. Blake's 8-year-old niece, who took one look at the assembled alien representatives and immediately brightened with the kind of enthusiasm that had historically preceded both great discoveries and complete disasters. "Wow!" Emma exclaimed, her voice carrying clearly through the facility's advanced audio systems. "Are those real aliens? They look so cool. Can I talk to them?" The effect on the assembled observers was immediate and dramatic. Several species activated what appeared to be emergency protocols. 3 different military advisors began frantically updating their threat assessments, and Dr. Lixian's crystalline features rearranged themselves into what might have been excitement or possibly a minor nervous breakdown. "Dr. Blake," Zixthal's voice carried a note of panic that suggested he was reconsidering every life choice that had led him to this moment. "The human juvenile appears to be attempting to establish direct communication with our observers. Is this normal behavior?" "Completely normal," Dr. Blake replied cheerfully. "Human children are naturally curious about new people. It's how they learn about the world." "Learn," Ambassador Korthak repeated ominously. "Dr. Blake, are you suggesting that human juveniles are conducting reconnaissance operations?" Before Dr. Blake could explain that children asking questions was not the same thing as military intelligence gathering, Emma had spotted the playground equipment that had been installed for the demonstration. Her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. "Oh my gosh, you guys built a playground. This is amazing. Can I try the monkey bars? And is that a slide? It's huge." Emma's excitement was infectious. The other children who had arrived for the demonstration immediately began exploring the equipment with the kind of systematic thoroughness that would have impressed a team of professional engineers. They tested the swings, examined the slide from multiple angles, and began what appeared to be a detailed structural analysis of the jungle gym. "Dr. Blake," General Thrix's voice carried a note of growing alarm. "The human juveniles appear to be conducting a comprehensive tactical assessment of the terrain. Should we be concerned about their strategic capabilities?" Dr. Blake watched as Emma showed a younger child how to use the monkey bars, patiently explaining the proper hand placement and encouraging him when he struggled with the more difficult sections. "General, she's teaching him how to play. It's called being helpful." "Helpful," Dr. Lixian murmured, making rapid notes on her crystalline tablet. "Dr. Blake, this helping behavior, is it a form of pack bonding?" "It's called being nice to people." The observation continued for another hour, during which the assembled representatives of galactic civilization watched in fascination and growing alarm as human children engaged in what they apparently considered to be the most sophisticated psychological warfare ever devised. The children played tag, which the military observers interpreted as advanced tactical maneuvering. They played hide-and-seek, which the intelligence analysts classified as reconnaissance training. They played on the seesaw, which the engineers decided was some form of physics-based problem-solving exercise. But the real crisis began when Emma noticed that some of the alien observers looked sad. "Dr. Blake," she called out, "why do some of the aliens look upset? Are they okay?" Dr. Blake glanced at the observation deck and realized that several of the representatives did indeed appear to be experiencing some form of emotional distress. The empathic collective's representative was practically radiating melancholy, while the hive mind's speakers seemed to be engaged in some kind of internal conflict. "They're just watching, Emma. They're trying to understand how human children play." Emma considered this for a moment, then made a decision that would fundamentally alter the course of galactic history. "Well, why don't they come down and play with us? It's more fun if everyone gets to join in." The suggestion hit the observation deck like a small antimatter explosion. Representatives from 47 different species suddenly found themselves confronted with an invitation to participate in what they had been analyzing as advanced military training exercises. "Dr. Blake," Zixthal's voice carried a note of panic that suggested he was experiencing the kind of existential crisis usually reserved for philosophers and tax accountants. The human juvenile is requesting direct interaction with our observers. What are the security implications of this request? The security implications, Dr. Blake said slowly, are that some alien kids might have fun playing with human kids. Fun, Ambassador Korthak repeated, as if the word contained the secrets of the universe. Dr. Blake, are you suggesting that our young should engage in recreational activities with human juveniles? Before Dr. Blake could answer, Emma had apparently decided that waiting for adult permission was taking too long. She walked directly up to the observation barrier and pressed her face against the transparent aluminum. "Hi," she called out cheerfully. "I'm Emma. What's your name? Do you want to come play with us? We're going to play freeze dance next, and it's really fun." The effect on the assembled observers was immediate and profound. The empathic collective's representative began radiating what the translation software identified as overwhelming affection. The Crystalline Confederation's delegate started glowing with what appeared to be excitement. Even Ambassador Korthak's battle-scarred carapace seemed to soften slightly. Dr. Blake, Dr. Lixian's voice carried a note of scientific fascination mixed with what might have been wonder. The human juvenile appears to be generating some form of emotional field that is affecting our observers. Is this a known capability of your species? Dr. Blake looked at Emma, who was now making funny faces at the aliens and giggling when they tried to copy her expressions. Dr. Lixian, that's called being charming. It's not a superpower, it's just Emma being Emma. Charming, Dr. Lixian repeated, as if she had just discovered a new form of physics. And this is normal? Completely normal. The demonstration continued for another hour, but the focus had shifted entirely. Instead of analyzing human children for military applications, the alien observers found themselves genuinely enchanted by the simple joy and openness that the children displayed. Emma's invitation to play had broken through decades of diplomatic protocol and scientific analysis, revealing something that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had somehow forgotten. Sometimes, the best way to understand someone was simply to spend time with them. As the session wound down, Dr. Blake realized that something fundamental had changed. The alien observers were no longer studying human children as potential threats or military assets. They were watching them as children. Young beings who were curious, kind, and eager to make friends with anyone who showed them the same openness. "Dr. Blake," Zixthul called out as the children began to gather their things. We would like to request additional observation sessions. For scientific purposes, of course." "Of course," Dr. Blake agreed, hiding a smile. "I'm sure we can arrange that." As they prepared to leave, Emma ran up to the observation barrier one more time. "Bye, everyone," she called out, waving enthusiastically. "Thanks for watching us play. Next time, you should come down and play with us. It'll be fun." The promise of next time sent another wave of anticipation through the observation deck. Dr. Blake realized that Emma had just accidentally issued the galaxy's first informal diplomatic invitation for interspecies juvenile cultural exchange. As they walked back toward the human quarters, Emma skipped alongside her aunt with the satisfied air of someone who had just made 47 new friends. "Aunt Sam," she said, "the aliens seemed really nice. Why were they so worried about us playing? Don't their kids know how to have fun?" Dr. Blake paused, suddenly realizing that Emma had asked the most important question of all. In all their analysis of human behavior, in all their concerns about military applications and strategic implications, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had somehow overlooked the most basic aspect of childhood, the simple desire to play and be happy. "Emma," she said slowly, "I think that's exactly the problem. And I think you might have just helped solve it." As they reached the human quarters, Dr. Blake's communication device chimed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council. She opened it to find a formal request for what the translation software was calling expanded juvenile cultural exchange protocols. In other words, the galaxy wanted playdates. Dr. Blake stared at the message, then at Emma, who was already planning what games she wanted to teach her new alien friends. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the sound of galactic civilization quietly reorganizing itself around the revolutionary concept of children having fun together. "Emma," she said, "I think you're about to become the galaxy's youngest ambassador." "Cool," Emma replied. "Can I put that on my resume?" The Galactic Council's Emergency Cultural Crisis Committee had been in session for 72 standard hours, which was approximately 71 hours and 58 minutes longer than anyone with functioning sanity wanted to contemplate. The crisis had begun 3 days ago, when the first official interspecies juvenile cultural exchange had taken place, and the results had been so catastrophically successful that half the galaxy was in a state of diplomatic panic, while the other half was frantically trying to figure out how to get their own children invited to the next playdate. Dr. Blake sat in what had become known as the Human Crisis Management Center and tried to process the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. According to the latest intelligence briefings, the simple act of letting human children play with alien children had somehow triggered what the xenosociologists were calling the most significant paradigm shift in galactic civilization since the invention of faster-than-light communication. Dr. Blake, High Coordinator Zixthul's voice carried the kind of exhausted desperation usually associated with beings who had discovered that their entire understanding of the universe was fundamentally incorrect. "We need to discuss the implications of yesterday's cultural exchange." Dr. Blake looked up from her reports, which included such gems as economic impact assessment, how hopscotch destabilized the Rigelian stock market, and military analysis, the strategic applications of Red Rover in modern warfare. "Let me guess," she said with weary resignation. "The children had fun, and now everyone's panicking because they can't figure out how to weaponize playground equipment." "The situation is far more complex," Ambassador Korthak replied. "Our preliminary analysis suggests that your juvenile cultural exchange has fundamentally altered the social dynamics of 17 different species." Dr. Blake blinked. "Come again?" "The Crystalline Confederation has reported a 60% increase in spontaneous joy manifestations among their young," Dr. Lixian announced, her crystalline features arranged in scientific bewilderment. "The empathic collective's children have begun engaging in friendship protocols with members of other species, and the warrior clan's young have started asking their parents when they can have another play battle with the human children." Dr. Blake stared at the assembled representatives, trying to process the idea that a simple playdate had somehow revolutionized the social development of multiple alien species. "Are you telling me that alien children are becoming happier?" "The implications extend far beyond individual happiness," General Thrix interjected, her cybernetic implants whirring with barely controlled panic. "Several species are experiencing aggressive pacification among their youth populations. The children are refusing to engage in traditional competitive hierarchies. Instead, they are requesting more opportunities for cooperative play experiences." Before Dr. Blake could respond, her communication device chimed with an urgent message from Emma, who was participating in Supervised Interspecies Juvenile Interaction Protocol 7. "Aunt Sam," Emma's voice carried the excitement of major scientific discoveries. "You have to see what we learned today. We figured out how to make all the games work for everyone. Like the Crystalline kids can't run very fast, but they can make beautiful sounds, so we changed tags so that you get frozen by music instead of being touched." Dr. Blake stared at the video, watching as her 8-year-old niece casually described the kind of innovative cross-cultural problem-solving that the galaxy's best diplomatic minds had been struggling with for centuries. The assembled representatives pressed against the observation barriers with expressions of wistful longing as Emma continued organizing games that transcended species limitations. "Dr. Blake," Zixthul said hopefully, "the human juvenile appears to be suggesting that adult participation in these activities might be possible." Dr. Blake looked around the chamber at the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, collectively admitting that they might want to have fun. "All right," she said, making a decision that would be remembered as either the moment galactic civilization finally grew up, or the day humanity accidentally conquered the universe through playground equipment. "Let's teach the galaxy how to play." 6 months after the Great Galactic Playground Revolution, Dr. Blake stood in her office at the Institute for Interspecies Childhood Development, trying to process that her job title was now Director of Universal Fun Coordination. The nameplate had been a gift from the Crystalline Confederation, who had apparently decided that bureaucratic humor was the next logical step in their cultural evolution. Her window showed the largest playground in galactic history, where children from 63 different species engaged in activities that defied every known law of xenosociology. Warrior clan cubs were teaching empathic collective youngsters how to build structurally sound sandcastles, while Crystalline children provided musical soundtracks for interspecies hopscotch that had evolved into interpretive dance. The transformation had been swift, comprehensive, and completely ridiculous. Within weeks of the first adult participation in galactic hide-and-seek, species that had maintained formal diplomatic relations for centuries were engaging in aggressive friendship protocols. Trade negotiations were conducted on swing sets, military treaties signed in sandboxes, and the Galactic Stock Exchange had installed playground equipment, after discovering that economic discussions were more productive during Foursquare games. "Dr. Blake," her assistant announced, "the Galactic Council is here for their weekly play therapy session." High Coordinator Zixthul entered carrying what appeared to be a carefully prepared presentation, followed by Ambassador Korthek with a juice box, General Thrix with cybernetic implants modified to appreciate paper airplane aerodynamics, and Dr. Lixian clutching a crystalline tablet covered in crayon drawings. "We're here to report a success," Ambassador Korthak announced, his battle-scarred carapace somehow conveying embarrassment. "The warrior clans have implemented cooperative play strategies across all 17 colony worlds. Youth aggression indices dropped 93%, and adults report unprecedented job satisfaction since we instituted mandatory playground breaks." "You instituted mandatory playground breaks?" Dr. Blake asked. "Either that or deal with a galaxy-wide productivity crisis," General Thrix explained, her implants making happy mechanical sounds. "Adults who play are significantly more creative, collaborative, and effective at problem-solving." Before Dr. Blake could respond, her communication device chimed with Emma's daily update. "Aunt Sam, we figured out how to play space tag using actual spaceships. Well, training simulators. But we made up new rules that make it way more fun than flying in circles." Dr. Blake felt familiar terror. "Emma, what exactly did you do to the flight simulators?" "We turned them into the most awesome game of space tag ever. We use asteroid fields and nebulae as obstacles, with rules about teamwork and helping each other. Now it's like a giant three-dimensional playground in space." "These modifications improve training effectiveness by 400%, General Thrix added, consulting a performance report. "Our pilots develop spatial awareness, collaborative problem-solving, and innovative tactical thinking at unprecedented rates." Dr. Blake stared at the report. "Turning flight training into a game made it more effective?" "Significantly. Military academies are requesting immediate implementation of EMA protocols across all training programs." Dr. Blake closed her eyes, processing that her 8-year-old niece had become the galaxy's leading expert on making things more effective by making them enjoyable. It was probably the most human approach imaginable. If something was boring or inefficient, just make it fun. "We've received requests from 47 species to implement similar modifications to their educational, military, and industrial programs," Zixthul continued. "The economic implications are staggering. Emma turned flight training into a game, it worked better, and now everyone wants to gamify their entire society?" "We prefer joy optimization protocols," General Thrix corrected. As the galaxy's most advanced leaders rushed off to try space tag, Dr. Blake reflected on the cosmic irony. Humanity had expected to learn from advanced alien civilizations. Instead, they had accidentally taught the galaxy that the best way to learn, grow, and work together was to remember how to play. She began typing her report to Earth. "Integration proceeding successfully. Humanity has accidentally revolutionized galactic civilization through strategic deployment of playground equipment and the radical concept of having fun." The battlefield had been drenched in metaphorical blood, ancient prejudices and rigid hierarchies that kept species separated. But now, in laughter echoing across the galaxy's largest playground, the alpha cubs of dozens of worlds slept peacefully beneath the protective cloak of shared joy. The revolution would continue, one playground at a time.